Hey everyone, welcome to the show for this week, Towards the Future, where we discuss important, relevant topics that are sometimes controversial in nature, and we explore them and we talk about them because this is something that affects all of us. Okay? Tonight we're talking about genetic modification, GMOs. Are you for them or are you against them? And if so, why? Why are you for them? Why are you against them? So my name is Autumn Asadel. I am a self-help coach and motivator. I believe in natural medicine and natural remedies to heal oneself, just as I have done, and that is what I educate and teach. So obviously, with knowing that in mind, you would know then that I do oppose GMOs and genetic modification, and I do not consume them or purchase from companies that use them or make them. That is my stance on it. But we're going to explore a bit more about labeling and something very, very strange, chickens, genetically modified chickens. So stay tuned for all this. This is going to be great, okay? So during this broadcast, please feel free to share your experiences or share your whatever your views are on GMOs, okay? And thank you for everyone who's already here already. I see Bad Girl here, and I see Marcelina. So thank you all so very much for tuning in, okay? So genetic modification. So before we begin, I do have a very special announcement here. This is just for today. There is a special sale on the Joy Organics CBD oil. 40% off today because it's the founder's birthday, Joy Smith. Now, Joy and I did a video together, and we talked about her company and the CBD, and you know, I've partnered with them. They are an affiliate of mine, and I will post that link if you want to check it out and save 40%. But the reason why I chose them and I use this brand exclusively is because they have 0 THC. So 0, and I mean 0, because most companies have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, or whatever. There we go. So if you do want to check them out, so just know that save 40% today, only today. So happy birthday to her. Anyway, we're talking about genetic modification today. This is a controversial one because genetic modification, GMOs, have only been around, I want to say it's mostly become more mainstream over like the past 10 years or so is when you started to hear much more about it. And there's been a lot more non-GMO labeling in the past like 10 years or so, okay? If you shop at a conventional grocery store, you know, we're talking about normal grocery stores that are very large and just have a variety of different products, including many name brand ones from many name brand products. I'm going to give an estimate around maybe around somewhere between 60 to 80% of the products in there have some sort of GMOs in them. Okay, that could be some type of processed food that you eat. Like if you buy, for example, various forms of these popular cereals that are even aimed at kids, they could be made with genetically engineered ingredients. So talking about genetically engineered corn and soy are usually the most common ones that are in there. And if there's 3 things you should always buy organic, it should always be corn, soy, and wheat. Okay? Corn and soy are genetically modified. Probably 90+% of the amount of corn and soy grown in the United States is genetically modified. So it's very hard to find non-GMO corn, and it's probably easier to find non-GMO soy. I've seen more of that, but non-GMO corn I think is a bit harder to come by. Wheat, on the other hand, wheat is not genetically modified, but buying conventional wheat products, as we discussed 2 episodes ago, glyphosate being a carcinogenic herbicide that is heavily used and is destroying the environment and causing many issues with health and cancer and many autoimmune disorders. So that is heavily sprayed on wheat. And as we discussed in that previous episode, glyphosate is very, very high in certain wheat products, okay? So, let's talk about the people who are pro-GMO, okay? Anyone watching right now who has strong opinions for GMOs or against GMOs, go ahead if you want to share, if you want to talk about your experiences, share your knowledge with us here, because regardless of whatever views you may have, yes or no, the one thing we're talking about in today's episode is the consent factor. So I have every right to say, even if I am given without a doubt 100% proof that genetically engineered ingredients are safe and that they're fine, even though I've seen plenty of studies and evidence to show the otherwise. But let's just forget all that, and let's just say, okay, I'm not going to be against genetic modification of any kind. I think that they're perfectly fine and safe. The problem is that they are in the food without consent. Okay? You purchase the box and it's not visible to you that they're made with genetically engineered ingredients. Some companies, if you look closely at the label, usually around the ingredients or so, sometimes below that, it will say made with genetically engineered ingredients or made with bioengineering or something along those lines, okay? It will say that. Whereas the non-GMO project is specifically about showing you this has no GMOs in it. It says non-GMO. Thank you so much, Milton. I am very happy for your wonderful donation. Thank you so very much. So the non-GMO project will have that right there. You'll be able to say it. Oh, thank you, E-Rock. Oh my gosh. Yes, thank you. You just moved Milton right out of the way there. Well, I thank you both so very, very much. Thank you so much. Okay. So I'm sure your name will appear here in a moment, E-Rock. So, yeah. The thing with genetically engineered ingredients is that we should have the right to understand what's in our food and know where it's coming from and be able to make that choice for ourselves, okay? And the thing is, some companies are very proud to be for GMOs, and they announce that, this is a GMO product. That's great. So go ahead and advertise your product as being for GMOs if that's how you want to be. But there are a majority of companies that actually do the opposite, and they try to hide that their product is even made with genetically modified ingredients at all. Okay? Now, they do have to essentially put that on the label somehow, that it's made with genetically engineered ingredients, but they're very sneaky about it. So they don't make it obvious. If you search online, if you try to find information online, they will hide it from you. Even on their own website, it won't show it there. Or it could be labeled as a natural cereal. Like I've seen, there's this one brand of natural cereal, and they are owned by a large company. Okay, and their corn, the corn oil or whatever else is in it, I think it's corn oil or maybe some soy or something, is genetically engineered. So even though it says natural and it looks all nice and pretty, it's like, oh, I'm going to get that for my kids. There's no artificial colors or preservatives. That's what it says on the front. But they're not going to announce right in the front that it's made with genetic engineering, because that's not something that they're proud of. And that's ultimately what it is. These companies aren't proud to be doing that. They're not proud. And so they have to sneak it in. They have to put it in there. And again, regardless of whatever the health consequences are, if let's just say that there are none, then why not be proud, right? Okay. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to hop into some of these articles here. But the first place to start is, what is genetic modification? I have links to all these articles in the description, okay? Here's the thing about genetic modification. Many people who are for GMOs will say, well, first of all, here's what they will say. They'll say, we've been genetically modifying things since our ancestors. Everything on the market today, all the fruits and vegetables, they've all been genetically modified by us to grow bigger or be stronger or to survive in some way, okay? So, first of all, that is a very uneducated opinion there, because they're not comprehending the difference between genetic modification and a natural form of breeding, okay? So, for example, a banana, very, very long time ago, is very, very tiny, so they had to breed them specific ways to get them larger and bigger. That's not something that I am against. I'm sure most people aren't against that. But we're talking about genetic modification here. We're talking about taking DNA and cells from another living organism and putting that in place of in another plant and living organism, okay? So you're giving something to something else that wouldn't ever cross paths to begin with or wouldn't ever exist any way, okay? So now, while there aren't many genetically modified foods on the market, I want to say maybe there's like 12 or so. I don't really know, all of them off the top of my head. I obviously know corn and soy being like the top, and I think there's also cotton. I think it's GMO cotton, I believe. I know papaya. I forget a few of the other ones, but I know corn and soy are definitely the top two, okay? And the problem is, it's not the same. So these people who are telling you that are blatantly lying to you or don't understand science. So genetic modification is the alteration of the genome of a plant or animal by the addition of new genetic material. So as I said, we're taking genes from another living creature and we're putting it into another creature via scientific means, via, taking the cells out and putting it into something else, okay? That's not a natural form of breeding, okay? What is genetic modification? GM provides a way of expressing desirable characteristics in an organism that otherwise would not display them. It is insertion of a gene into an organism, altering the genetic makeup. So you're essentially altering the genome of a particular living creature. And as we all know, even a very small, slight alteration of genes could essentially be an entirely different species. Okay, so even though our DNA is very, very close to that, like of various forms of primates and monkeys and everything, it's different enough that we're not the same as them. We're different species. Okay, so in this regard, what you're doing is they're taking something and making it more desirable. So for corn, for example, corn has a type of, I think it's called the Bt toxin in it. And that is taken from, I think, some sort of bacteria, or maybe like a jellyfish, or I forget which one exactly it is. I think it's a bacteria. I think soy might be the jellyfish one. I don't even remember because they're just so insane and crazy as it is. Okay? So you're taking that, and then what you essentially do with the corn, if an insect goes to eat the corn, their stomachs explode. Okay, that is what the corn has been genetically engineered to do. It's killing insects by them just going around it and starting to eat it. Okay? Now what that does to a human, well, that's a different story entirely. Okay? Let's say the difference between GM and selective breeding. Here we go. Here's what a lot of these pro-GMO people don't understand at all. I've heard this many times when I've spoken up about GMOs. This is what they always say. Selective breeding is a form of genetic modification which doesn't involve the addition of any foreign material, DNA, into the organism. Okay? That's what selective breeding is, as we talked about before. Pro-GMO campaigners argue that humans have been genetically modifying organisms for thousands of years, albeit without knowledge that the favorable traits they were selecting for were determined by genes. So that is what we're talking about. When I say GMOs, I'm not talking about selective breeding. Okay? I'm sure majority of people are not talking about selective breeding. But pro-GMO people, that's the first thing that they will say, because they want you to believe, oh, we have, it's, okay, I thought GMOs were taking foreign DNA and putting it into something else. And that is what genetic modification are. They're not the same. They're not even close to the same, I would say. They're completely different. Why are organisms genetically modified? In plants, GM is used to enhance productivity by making crops more resistant to herbicide and pests, thereby increasing the yield of the crops. And this is part of the problem as well, because certain plants are much more, they will not, because they're genetically engineered to not die with being sprayed with herbicides and pesticides, okay? So when they can't die, a normal crop would die with the amount that is sprayed on them. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, we're just using less now. We're using less pesticides because they are resistant to pesticides. And that, honestly, that is also a bold-faced lie, because they have to use more and more, because then the environment begins to change and the bugs start to get resistant to these pesticides and herbicides as well. So they end up having to spray more and more on these crops. It's not less, it's more and more. And because the plants are genetically modified, they will live through it. So you're getting higher concentrations of these pesticides in the genetically modified foods. Now, something to note about genetically modified foods: just because you buy non-GMO foods doesn't mean that it's not a conventional product still, okay? Anything that is not an organic product should be labeled as a conventional product. And what do I mean by that? Wheat, for example, is not genetically modified. So if you see like a bag of pretzels or tortillas or something that is whole grain, whole wheat, or cereal or something, and it says non-GMO, unless it says organic, it's going to be processed with glyphosate and all these other herbicides, which will likely be in that product. So that's where it is a bit of a deception there. Also, with non-GMO project verified status, it doesn't have to be 100% devoid of GMOs. There could still be small amounts of genetic alterations in there, okay? So what you have then, I think it's like maybe 99%, I believe. So you have to have 99% of the genetic material be non-GMO. So that 1% could still have genetically modified ingredients and still be labeled non-GMO. So again, that's a bit of a lie on the other end, okay? Same with organic or all natural labels. It doesn't have to be 100%, because really, honestly, there really is no such thing, unless you look at every ingredient and every ingredient says organic. And even then, that's still kind of iffy. Animals are also genetically modified to give them human diseases in order to test new drugs or to study the biology of disease. That's right. So exploiting animals even further here with genetically modifying them so we can understand disease better. So far, animals that have been genetically modified have not been used for human consumption. Now, this was written 11 years ago now, okay? 2008 it came out. Kind of, I think the chimes are changing. I'm pretty sure we'll start eating genetically modified animals at some point, if you eat animals. Okay. So this is, this was mostly from New Zealand here. So this is something else. Crop and Food Research is researching a tearless onion. So some of these genetically modified crops that they're thinking about, there's no need for it. Who needs a tearless onion? That's the hallmark of an onion. If you're chopping it, you get all teary, and sometimes that's how it is. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's tearless. Who cares? Who cares? They also have now, that's on the market, a genetically modified apple that won't turn brown. Okay. Well, guess what? It's still going to go rotten. You just can't tell it's rotten. Okay? It's not going brown. And I've seen in my store also, and I shop at a more natural health food store. It doesn't, carry for the most part genetically modified foods, and mostly organic foods as well, but not all of them, I'll tell you that. I've seen a non-GMO, non-browning apple. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, what is that? Well, the thing is, it's CRISPR. So CRISPR apple with the genetic modification. And that doesn't have to be labeled as GMO. because that's a different process entirely, which that's a whole nother topic for another time. I did see a comment here. Let's take a look real quick. GMO salmon has already happened. Yes, that is very true. Salmon are growing longer and larger and larger. That is very, very true. Salmon are very, very huge and big now due to the genetic modification of them. And that's the thing. We will see later when they go about labeling it what is exempt from labeling. Okay. Opponents fear that this technology will lead to the occurrence of designer babies. Now, this was written 11 years ago, and guess what? Just like this past year, there was a Chinese scientist, who decided let's genetically alter these two babies. I believe they were twins. So we have two babies now that have had their genetic material altered via CRISPR. Not genetic modification like we're talking today. No, CRISPR. So he alters the genes of these babies to make them resistant to HIV and AIDS. So this is something that will be happening in the future. The thing is, with GMOs are not going to be a long-lasting technology. It will be replaced by CRISPR. CRISPR will also replace vaccines in the future. Just think about it. If you can alter your DNA by taking out certain things or inserting desirable parts into them where it makes you resistant to disease, it makes you more beautiful. It's like, I want to go to the doctor and have the CRISPR technique done on me so I can, grow stronger, or I want to be able to grow more hair. Well, guess what? You'll be able to do that with CRISPR. GMOs are just the first part of that. So CRISPR is what is ultimately going to replace all of it sometime down the line. Not yet. It has to be more mature before it will replace it all, but it will replace it all. Okay, so this is very interesting here because this is something that is happening right now, and we'll see how those babies turn out. Okay, next one. Demystifying GMOs. New research shows unexpected changes in plant DNA. Let's say Marianne, the joy melatonin. I have not tried that personally, but there might be someone who has tried that. I do not know. I've only ever done the oil, but if you want to give it a try, 40% off today. Anyway, the DNA sequence containing desirable traits is then removed and implanted into the genome of host organisms, thereby transferring the beneficial properties, as we discussed. Now, here's what the issues are with genetic modification. The lack of precision. Researchers are not sure exactly what happens. Oh, no. So we've been doing this for quite some time now, but we don't know what happens. We don't know how it works. How does it work? It's not accurate. So how are you going to explain that? This just really seems very cancerous to me, because if you don't know what's going to happen and how a plant's going to change, and then you consume that and part of that genetic material gets absorbed into your body, what's that going to do to your body? I don't know. The structure and chemistry of the host DNA might be changed more than originally thought due to unknown interactions. So they don't know. As I said, they don't know. And that's what is the most interesting thing, because there's so many people who are for GMOs, but they don't know what's going on here. They don't have a clue. They're trying to figure it out, but it's already there. It's already on the market. So we're just, said it before, we're like the guinea pigs to test it out. It's like, people are eating all these GMOs. They're not having any issue. Can't be because of that. So it must be safe. Those designs are selling genetically modified. Those designing and selling genetically modified products merely test the new organism for the desirable trait, and if they're present, the process is considered a success. So there's really no safety there as well. If you look at it, what they're doing is, you want a corn to be resistant to A, B, and C. Well, you insert the material from a foreign species into it, and it becomes resistant to A, B, and C, and that's all you need. You're not looking at all the other effects of it. You're not going to look at, well, we did that, but now all of the vitamin, this one vitamin is completely lacking in there, or now it's turned into something else entirely, that when you eat it, it's something else. You don't know. They don't know what's going on. It's so confusing. They don't even know. One insertion attempt could result in as many 7 unintended interruptions or manipulation to the host's genome. Some of these were up to 10 times larger than intended, resulting in large segments of host DNA being damaged or relocated. So when we have DNA here in plants that are being damaged and relocated, how is it then a healthy product? You know, you're supposed to be eating things that are healthy and growing healthy, but they're being sprayed with many pesticides and herbicides that do damage to them, that are genetically engineered, that also do damage to the DNA of that species. And then such as glyphosate, for example, that is a chelator of important nutrients and minerals. So that all of the minerals are devoid there. So you're buying a product that's just substance, but no real vitamin or mineral content is present in it because it's being damaged, it's being killed. The research demonstrates that there's more happening on the molecular scale than we originally thought. Feeding the world's future population is not only going to involve genetically modified foods, it's going to require them. Current agricultural yields are not near high enough for the projected 9.7 billion people of 2050 to live on. So yes, this is very interesting here, and the whole reason why you gotta say that is because, gonna be frank with you, people can't keep it in their pants. People can't keep it in their pants. They just gotta go out and have sex and have tons of kids, knowing that, first of all, there are plenty of parents who do not want kids. There are plenty of parents who want to abuse their kids and are neglectful to their kids. It's like, why even have a kid then? So honestly, you know, I don't try to say, you know, that I always believe in your right to choose whatever you want to do, okay? You have the right to do whatever you want to do, okay? You really do. But the thing is, well, some people should really be taught how to be a parent before they actually embark on that. Because there are so many people, and it's so sad, who are getting pregnant younger and younger because they don't know how to, as I said, keep it in their pants. They don't know how to tame that sexual desire that we all have. So here's the thing, you know, if you're able to reproduce and you're having sex and you don't want kids, then maybe that's something to really think about and consider what is going on. Because if you don't want kids, then maybe the ultimate way to stop that is to not partake in the activity that is going to result in kids, okay? Now, that's a topic for another time, okay? It's time for another time. You know, as I said, I believe everyone has the right to do whatever they want to do. So I'm not telling you what to do, but think of the consequences of your actions. So am I going to partake in a particular action knowing I don't want a outcome that could potentially happen, even if it's a very small chance? No, I'm not going to do that. But it's a risk. It's all a risk, okay? So, driving a car, what's the chances you have to get into an accident and die immediately? They could be pretty well, but we also do it. We take that chance, we take that risk. So, you take the risk of whatever action you feel necessary. Because when you have a child, it's your child for a life. You have it for life. Moving on. Molecules of GM food can accumulate in human digestive tract and enter cells of body. Oh, so this is something that many pro-GMO people have said. It doesn't work like this. It doesn't work like this. So take it for what you will, because everything that we eat, we become. That is my strong understanding and belief of this, because you are what you eat, okay? So if you eat something that is technology-based and genetically modified and not found in nature, none of these genetically modified foods are found in nature. It's not a natural thing. then there's going to be some sort of repercussion your body's not going to understand what to do with it. DNA of GM products can survive harsh processing and the digestive condition. Some of them can get into the human body, combining with the DNA of bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract. DNA in the bloodstream and tissue of humans and animals is what they're found in. Interesting. Microriboclinic acid, one of the main molecules in cells of living organisms, in addition to DNA and proteins of the plant food treated with insecticides and antiviral sprays, enters the body of its consumers and can affect genetic processes. So you're eating things that could potentially affect your genetic processes as well. Yes, Tachibana. Indeed. We're all living life with a risk. We really are, because any moment, any of us could die. I could die right here performing this broadcast to you, you know? Who knows what could happen, but we all take that risk. But it's about not being afraid of risks and understanding the consequences of your risks. Your decisions have a consequence, and you gotta be knowing if you're ready for those consequences. Here is where we get into the conspiracy theory and anti-science type of argument here, okay? So many people who are pro-GMO will say, if you don't believe in GMOs, you are anti-science. So according to NPR here, people strongly against GMOs had shakier understanding of food science, study says. That's right. So people who question where their food comes from, who question, you know, why people are having health conditions after consuming genetically modified and conventional crops, and then somehow suddenly feel better after consuming organic food. Why there's so many people like that. Right, we're anti-science for that. Here we go. Let's take a look what they say. People who most intensely oppose genetic modified foods think they know a lot about food science, but they actually know the least. That's right, we're anti-science people. GMOs are widely considered safe by scientists. That's right, they're all safe. Right. Even though the science that is done shows a bit of a different story there. Previous surveys have shown that providing more scientific facts about GMOs to people doesn't change their mind. Now, here is an issue on both ends of the argument, okay? Whether or not you are for GMOs or against GMOs, or any debate for that matter, okay? It doesn't matter what debate it is, any debate. No amount of evidence is going to change your mind because of cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. Okay? It's like whatever information you see, it just you're just going to look at the ones that side with you and you're just going to prove your side. We're all biased, okay? I have my own bias here. I'm sitting here teaching you about anti-GMO. Okay? I'm biased because I strongly believe that, and I'm showing you that information, whereas if I started to look at other information, that could be a different story. So we're all biased. Okay? But we have every right to look at whatever information that we desire. But many of us don't look at all the information. I try my best to look at information from all different sides, and this is how I've come to this conclusion in my life over many, many years, okay? This isn't something that just happened. This took many, many years to get to a point where I am now because I was having many health issues a long time ago. So we have here, people were asked a series of true or false questions about science. And listen to the first question, whether the core of the earth is hot or cold. Just reading that made me question, like, wait a minute, is that seriously a question you're going to ask here? Oh, okay. The results showed the more strongly people reported being opposed to GMOs, the lower their test scores. That's right, we're dumb. That's essentially what they're doing. We're saying that people who question GMOs are stupid. We're stupid for questioning it. We're dumb people. They plan to follow up with more studies of how this finding may play into other controversial science issues, including vaccinations, nuclear power, and homeopathic medicine. So here's what they do at the end of this to wrap it up, to make it seem more conspiracy theory type thing, okay? I've never heard of the nuclear power type of argument, okay? But vaccination, I know, is a very, very hot topic, very, very controversial topic, and same with homeopathic medicine, okay? These are very controversial topics that many people are passionate on both sides, okay? Now, the issue is, most people may read this and go, oh, vaccines 100% safe and effective, no question there. Homeopathic medicine, 100% bogus crap, doesn't work, blah, 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 okay? But here's the thing. There are plenty of people who this homeopathic medicine does work for. I know many people who this has benefited. And it's not just a placebo, because it's like, wait a minute, how does it work on an animal? How does it work on a baby who doesn't even know what they're getting? If they feel better after taking it, how does that work then? How does then the science show that it would work? Okay, so again, these are topics here that people are passionate for or against for a variety of reasons, and you can't just brush them off just like that. You have your opinion, other people has their opinion as well, okay? So for these types of things, some people will greatly benefit from them. Okay? Moving on. So if anyone does use like any of those types of homeopathic remedies, certainly comment on that, because I know many people do not understand it or oppose to that as well. Because it's really a lack of understanding about it as well. Don't be fooled. USDA changes labeling for GMO foods to now say bioengineered. So this is what's coming in the very, very near future here. Are you going to sleep there, Tachibana? If so, I wish you a good night. New labels for food that indicate whether or not they have genetically modified organisms will now be labeled bioengineered. So this is going to be by January 21st, 2022. So about 3 years from now, okay? This is what's going to happen. USDA decided the term bioengineered would be used in place of terms consumers are already more and more aware of, like genetically modified or genetically engineered. So they're trying to get away from this genetically engineered because that sounds too harsh, I guess. So they want to make it more friendly to people so they can, again, deceive them more because people are knowing what to look out for. So if they deceive them more with something new, they wouldn't really know what to look out for. Genetically engineered or genetically modified organisms may muddy disclosure. Any foods meant for human consumption have to have the disclosure on the label either with text, the symbol, an electronic or digital link, and or text message with more options for information. So I can see many companies opting for this last option. The electronic or digital link has to have words telling the consumer to scan for more food information. So it's not going to say it directly on there, so you're going to have to scan for it. You're going to have to, I want to know what's in my food here, so I have to scan to figure out, oh, bioengineered ingredients. How many people are going to do that? How many people are going to do that? I don't think many people are going to do that, okay? Food disclosure advocates believe this is not a fair way to alert consumers about bioengineered products, as not everyone has access to a smartphone or mobile device that would allow them to scan. So again, it should be written clearly right on the product. And I've heard from people who are pro-GMO, and they're like, it's not going to change anything about it being labeled. It's like, well, why not just have it labeled if it's genetically engineered? I mean, what's it going to harm? Apparently, some of the studies have shown that when you put it on the label and people know that it's genetically engineered, it actually increases the sales of it. because then you're not deceiving people. That's what this is about, okay? I don't care if you're pro-GMO or anti-GMO. This is about disclosure. This is about freedom to choose whatever you want to do. If I have the right that I want to avoid these for whatever reason I want to, I have the right to be able to do that, and I shouldn't be lied to or deceived by companies trying to hide ingredients from me. And that's why I don't trust any of these companies, because they lie and deceive you by putting in small print that is genetically engineered or just omitting it entirely. And that's what they do. So here's the new label that will be shown, and it makes it look all nice and pretty. There's a sun, there's a field. Oh, it looks so beautiful, right? Well, they don't show. What they should show is a laboratory. Is what they should show, because it's bioengineered. It's genetically engineered in a laboratory to change its traits and then plant it in the soil. But they're not going to do that, because then that would be too intimidating and people won't buy that stuff. Many consumers will not know they have to look deeper when finding what's in their food. And that's the problem. Okay. Cooper chats. I'm very glad that you're talking about this important topic. It's a very good one to talk about. So, yes, keep up the good work. Okay, so here's where it gets even more interesting, okay? Foods that comes from animals that eat GMO feed is exempt from labeling. Okay, you hear that? So if you are a meat eater, or, drying milk products, or any type of cheese or dairy product, or what have you, even chickens, okay? Chicken eggs. Buying eggs. Unless it says organic, you have to always assume it's genetically modified, because animals especially eat the highest amount of genetically modified crops. Most of the corn, soy, and wheat products, actually I think it's just corn and soy actually, go to animals. So we're not feeding our own kind or people who are starving. We're feeding animals, which then we eat. So there's been studies on animals who eat GMO feed and the effects that it has on them as well. And the effects are that it decreases infertility, it causes birth defects, or it just makes them not be able to survive and more die after eating. I don't think it's just GMO feed, it's the high pesticides in the GMO feed. That is a bigger issue than the actual GMO for the animals. Since pet food is not meant for human consumption, it does not have to be labeled either. Okay, so pet food for your animal. That could be loaded with genetically modified foods, which also means loaded with that's right, tumors as well. Yes, thank you for that love and gratitude. Tumors as well in animals. So you could be feeding your pet with the same thing that these farm animals are eating and getting cancer. Foods that's served in cafeterias, restaurants, lunchrooms, food carts, or salad bars, or other prepared food places is also exempt. Again, you're never going to see that labeled anywhere. And how many people eat out? How many people, eat out somewhere at these places? A lot of people do. So the problem here is that, I would love to see for like a restaurant to be able to see the ingredients that they use. To have a nutrition label for each thing that they have, because we should always be mindful of what we're eating. Now, I'm always mindful of what I eat. I eat very well, I would say. I mean, of course, there's no such thing as very well. It's just about eating what your body needs and being healthy for your body and getting enough food, for your body so you're not starving yourself, okay? Or overeating. There's a balance right in between. The problem is, here in America, a lot of us waste food. A lot of us overeat. So I think if we understood what's in our food and the calories and fat and all that sort of stuff, sodium, cholesterol, carbs, I think if we understood that, then we would be much more mindful. But it's impossible to be mindful if there's no labels at a place. I see. corn syrup. Yeah, corn syrup is really bad. High fructose corn syrup is in a lot of things. It's in ketchup. It's in like syrups, like for like pancakes. High fructose corn syrup is a very, very bad ingredient that should always be avoided. That's like one of the ingredients that should always be avoided. And our last article here, as crazy as it is, genetically modified chickens lay eggs with cancer-killing chemicals inside. I mean, is this satire? Is this satire here? I don't. It's like this is a real thing. This is real. This is bizarre. This is very, very weird. Okay. Genetically modified chickens that produce human proteins with anti-cancer effects in their eggs could provide a cost-effective way to produce drugs, research suggests. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this is weird. This is very weird. You think this is weird? This is weird. We're getting weird. That's right, exploit the animals even more. You know, use the animals as anti-cancer, even though, what's the saying? If we had the cure for cancer, if we knew what the cure for cancer was, what does that line go? If we could cure cancer, we would have the cure by now, or something along those lines. I forget exactly what the line is. We would know what it is by now if we could cure cancer. And there are many remedies that help with cancer. Natural remedies, such as, there are so many. There are so many. So I'm not even, that's another topic for another time here. But here we go. Chickens. This is very, very strange. The scientists added genes to the chicken's DNA coding. That's right. So they're genetically altering DNA, the DNA of chickens, for a human protein called INF alpha 2A. Well, actually, IFN alpha 2A, which has antiviral and anti-cancer effects, and another protein called macrophage CSF, which is involved in the production of white blood cells. This is weird. This is weird. No harmful effects for the chickens. Well, how do they know that? How do they know that? Again, how do they know that if it's so early on? You gotta see a chicken from life to death. I mean, and by harmful effects, here's what they mean. Probably no changes with the chicken's ability to do whatever it needs to do. You don't know if that chicken's in pain or having some sort of issue, because what they do with all chickens and birds is that they, you know, pump them of hormones so that they're so big, yet they're so young. So that's very harmful for the chickens. That's very, very harmful there. We don't feel their pain. We don't know what their pain's like, so that's not harmful. They can't. We can't feel their pain, so they must not feel any pain, right? Can I feel your pain? So I should just completely invalidate it. So that's what it seems to be here. They don't know what the harmful effects are, so they just say, well, there are none. Chickens are commercially viable for producing proteins suitable for drug discovery studies and other applications in biotechnology. Eggs are already used to grow viruses for uses in vaccines, and other animals such as goats have been genetically modified in the past to produce useful proteins in their milk. Again, this is all just exploitation of animals that doesn't need to be. And for those wondering about the vaccine part, this is primarily the flu vaccine. Flu vaccine is grown in chicken eggs, which is not really reliable, which is why the effectiveness is usually very, very low, because as soon as it begins to grow, it changes and it mutates into a different virus. So it's really not, well, a different strain of the virus. It changes a little bit. So it's really not even the same there. So it's a bit different in that regard. And the goat thing, I've never heard of that, but guess what? I don't drink goat milk. I'm not going to advise goat milk, so I stay away from that. So that's what we have today. My gosh, what did you think of all that? That was crazy. That was really crazy. But as I said, there is no stopping genetic modification, because as we saw before, it is going to be the future here. As much as we may try to deny it or we try to avoid it, it is the future. Okay? There's going to be more and more people to feed, and they're going to have to find ways of doing it. But as I said, CRISPR will replace that at some point. And at some point, there will be no land to actually grow food. It will all be, just created for you, like with the cloning type of thing, okay? They've already trying to do cloning with like animal meat and stuff. So you don't have to kill an animal for meat, you clone it. But that's not a natural thing. And as someone who's very for nature and natural health and remedies, the future is not natural, and it will not be natural. That's not what the future brings. That's not what the future is going to be. Let's see. So if you have any questions about this, I would love to hear your views here. Let me know. Because if you disagree with anything I said, I see a lot of people who were commenting a lot and saying a lot of things that were very accurate that I definitely agree with here. So, yeah. Leave it to science to break the boundaries of science. Yes, that's very true, Ryan. I'm seeing a lot of here about depopulation as well. So the interesting thing about that is, well, what can we say about that? It can be a form of depopulation and population control in general. Yes, by making certain people sick and everything, whereas the people who may have a remedy for these various things to either avoid it or just, be able to have a remedy to counteract some of the side effects of these things. But we must also understand population control meaning a very what's a good way of putting it? Population control on a scale of just making people dependent on pharmaceutical drugs, that type of population control. Okay, so we're not talking about population control where if you eat this, you will die right away. We're talking about a very slow, with health issues, a slippery slope, going very, very slow to that point. Okay, so as we mentioned, many conventional foods, they're not health foods. They're very damaging foods that are not healthy for our bodies. Especially here in America, we eat so unhealthy. Other countries eat way healthier than us. And we pride ourselves in being the best country in the world. We're the best country when it comes to freedom of choice and freedom of opinions, because I have the right to express this to you, whereas in another country, I wouldn't be able to express this to you. So I'm very grateful for that. And whatever choices I have to make, whatever choices you have to make, you have the freedom to be able to do that. Other countries, you may not be able to do that. Like several Asian countries, such as China, for example, it's all about censorship. It's all about controlling the entire population very blatantly. And they don't know. It's like they live in their own bubble there. They don't know what's going on outside because all the media and news media is being controlled by the government there. So, at least here, you have more sense of a freedom. I wouldn't say you have total freedom by any chance of not any chance at all. But you still have more freedom than if you compare it to other places. Okay? So, but in that regard, you have to have a form of, as you said, population control. So that comes with not informing people of how their bodies are meant to be, how their bodies are meant to heal. Like everything that our body does, it does for a reason. If you get sick and you get a high fever and you're taking something to counteract that high fever, your body's meant to have that high fever when you're sick, so it fights off the virus. If you're suppressing it, you're not allowing your body to be able to fully experience it and heal about it. So, and no, I have not heard about that, Dorothy. I don't really pay much attention to international news. I don't pay much attention to any type of news regarding that. I pay attention to more health news, I guess. The credit system, yeah, the social credit system, I don't know anything about that. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to be wrapping this up now. I do have some important announcements to make. So there will not be any episodes of Towards the Future for the next 2 weeks, because next week there will be a new video that will be going out only on my website. Okay? It's already available and already has been available to my Patreon supporters as well as my YouTube members. So if you are a YouTube member, and what I mean by that is like a membership to this channel, usually right below the video there's like a join button. So yeah, you'll be able to join and become a member, and you'll get access to cool emojis, such as, let me show you all the emojis you will get if you become a member. That's all the emojis you will get so far that I have. Really, really cool stuff. Rooster and Desert. So you have that. And also, you know, you're just helping support this information in this channel, and being also able to get the videos early. So as I said, this video is already out to my Patreon supporters and my YouTube members. But it will be coming publicly to my website next Friday, okay? So that is why there will be no episode there. But the other important news that I won't be having the show the week after that is because will be doing a live interview with a special guest named Elena Freeland. She has mostly written books about geoengineering and transhumanism. Very, very interesting conversation we're going to have on February 26th. So if you subscribe to my email newsletter, you will get, if you're already subscribed to my email newsletter or you want to subscribe, you will get the video next week as well as the announcement and details for the live stream on the 26th, okay? So I will link that to you here, and you'll be able to sign up, and you will also get my free book as well. Okay, so you will get all those details coming up, okay? Now that video that's going out on my website next week, that won't be available on YouTube until a week after that, essentially. So it's going to be even later. So if you want to get that video now, Patreon and YouTube supporters, you can wait next week for it to be on my website, or 2 weeks from now it'll be on YouTube. Actually, a little more than 2 weeks, but yes. Okay. So I wish you all a wonderful rest of your evening. I will be going live on Twitch for some gaming. I'm going to link this one too. I'm giving you a lot of links, okay? I'm giving you a lot of links here. So I will be going live on Twitch at probably around 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Probably about 2 hours from now. So if you want to come and join, you can do that. We'll be playing some video games. Yes. So, yes, I started a Twitch channel back in October. So, it's going to be great, okay? Yep, I know, Ryan, you've come to a lot of them recently. So, yeah, that's great. So, thank you all so very much again, and I will catch you all later, and you have a wonderful rest of your night. And if you come to the gaming, I will be there, okay? Bye-bye.